yourself appear on screen, just wait like 3 seconds. Okay?
3 seconds, all right.
And then start. Okay?
Yep. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sports Grind Season 4, Episode 2. My name is Tyler Wargo, and because the show is every other week, we have a lot to talk about, going with NBA action from last night, NHL on the ice from last night, NFL news and rumors, because obviously NFL, it's kind of all season when it comes to trading and all that discussion. And we also have high school baseball and softball, which is happening this weekend. That's going to be the start of it. And then we have MLB news, which I would like to talk about. Really one thing to talk about when it comes to the MLB, as we have MLB happening next week. And then that's really about it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting off, we have the Pistons pulling a shocking win, beating the 76ers, 94-102. I kind of found that shocking considering that the 76ers are really good. Obviously, they don't have that good of games all the time, but you can't win them all. Pistons, obviously, that's something that they can really look back on, beating the 76ers this time of the day. So, 76ers record is 43-30. Pistons record is 21-56. Pistons obviously are not doing that good. As for the 76ers, they're still looking out for the playoffs. So, now, what's the reason for this loss? Obviously, the 76ers, these guys have been showing up every day, been really doing well, especially having James Harden new on the team. It's been really helping them out. But yeah, with these new teams, with the new players on the 76ers, why did they still lose? And my reason for that is, we saw a lot of turnovers. 15 turnovers that the 76ers had, and as for the Pistons, they only had 5 turnovers. There was a huge difference between that. And certainly the fourth quarter is what costed them. They gave up 30 points, allowing the Pistons to score 30 points. And the defense that the Pistons had in the fourth quarter really put the end to the 76ers. They were winning in the first and in the beginning of the second half, and they just blew it towards the end of the game, which it happens. That's basketball. It's a very fast-paced moving game. You could be up by 20 points and you could still blow the game, and that's exactly what the 76ers did. These guys, look, it happens, right? Obviously the Pistons, they really worked at it. They really came back. Really credit for them. But, let's look at this. The 76ers, we saw James Harden only put up 18 points. Considering that this is James Harden you're talking about, this guy could have put up more than 30 points, or even just 30 points, in which he did not. It was Joel Embiid who really put the points on the board. And as for this loss, it's not going to really hurt the 76ers going forward, but it definitely is a really bad loss that the 76ers pulled up. As for the Pistons, is this their best game all season? And I'm going to say yes. Pistons, obviously, considering I don't watch the Pistons all the time, but I think this is definitely one of their greatest games all season. Beating the 76ers as good as they are right now, that's a really good win. You don't really got much guys on the Pistons. You only got really just a bunch of rookies showing up on the court, in which they did perfect. So yeah, I definitely think this is the best game they had all season. You can literally just show off. You can really just go off on that, and it just helps out the team. Good game in Brooklyn. Now, this game was amazing. Good game in Brooklyn. Bucks defeated the Nets 120-119. 1 point off from tying it in overtime. Man of the game with Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course. This guy, when you ever see the Bucks play, it's always Giannis Antetokounmpo that you would look at. Him, Wesley Matthews, and Chris Middleton are just absolutely stunning on the court. They really showed up last night in Brooklyn. Giannis had 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. As for Kevin Durant in the Nets, he put up 26 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds. A lot has happened in this game, considering that they went to overtime. We saw a lot of fouls that the Nets had. 25 fouls. Was this necessary? Obviously there was a Chris Middleton foul was absolutely not acceptable. And I definitely think the Nets definitely did not deserve that much fouls. A lot of Kyrie Irving, obviously, he put the blame on the refs. They think that if the refs, were not doing that bad of a job, they would have won. And, it's like that. That was a very aggressive game last night. I certainly thought the Nets had it in them, but no. But when you look at Giannis Antetokounmpo, this guy, I saw this game. This guy was dropping threes. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the tall guy that he is, he could dunk, and he could shoot three-pointers. So this was probably the greatest game of last night. No doubt about it. Now, is this a future playoff matchup? And yes, it is. I mean, we've seen these guys play many times. Matter of fact, we've seen them in the playoffs face off each other before. And yes, they definitely will face off in the playoffs probably again. As we know, playoffs are coming soon. But yeah, I mean, the Bucks, I mean, that's a really good win that they pulled off right there. Hawks on a 4-game win streak after owning the Cavaliers 131-107. Bulls won in overtime facing the Clippers 130-135 at the United Center. Jazz conquered the Lakers last night 109-122. Lakers obviously doing terrible. I mean, it's kind of shocking to see this, to see how bad the Lakers are doing. I mean, they were just good a couple of seasons back, and now they're doing terrible. Jazz are 5th in the Western Conference. Lakers fall behind the Spurs in the 11th spot. Lakers, obviously, they're not going to have any chance in the playoffs. But as for the Jazz, I mean, these guys, if they can win the last games of the regular season, they could definitely be in a nice, good spot. Even not 4th place, but even 3rd place. These guys can really be showing up. Considering that they really had a good season in the beginning, they kind of fell off a little bit. But I definitely think that they're still up for playoff contention. I mean, yes, they recovered from a 5-game losing streak, which really costed them, in my opinion. I mean, if you could get rid of the 5-game losing streak, and let's just say they bounced back from the 5-game losing streak, which really costed them, and let's say that they fought the Warriors. They beat the Warriors, Grizzlies, Thunder, and Suns, and the Trailblazers in the next matchup, which they won't win all those games. But let's just say they win the Warriors, Thunder, Suns, and Trailblazers, or just win 3 games in the next upcoming games. Jazz can be in a playoff spot. I mean, these guys really deserve it, considering that they only have Rudy Gobert and a bunch of other rookies. They deserve it. I mean, Mike Conley as well. I mean, this guy's he's a veteran and he's still doing well for the team. So now we move on from NBA action. We now move on to the NFL news. Obviously, I'm a Saints fan, so I'd like to address this. Andy Dalton is now having a 1-year deal with the Saints. I mean, as a Saints fan, it's kind of nice to see that because we've had a real big struggle with the quarterbacks. I mean, the quarterbacks having only we had to rely off our 3rd backup quarterback this past season, which was absolutely Trevor Siemian. That guy was terrible. Sorry to say, and Jameis Winston, you can't really rely on him considering how much times he gets hurt. And as for Taysom Hill, I mean, he doesn't have that. He's not really that good quarterback. As much as people say he is a good quarterback, he's not that good in my mind. So yeah, Andy Dalton being that nice QB just in case if Jameis Winston gets hurt, I mean, that's absolutely amazing to have. He is a veteran, so hopefully he doesn't get injured. And I hope he still has it in him because obviously he's been in the league for quite some time. He has played on the Bengals a while back. But, you know, it's always good to have, and I can't wait to see how the Saints are going to be playing with Andy Dalton. Tyreek Hill also signed with the Dolphins. As Tyreek Hill, obviously, they let him go. I think it's a 4-year deal with the Dolphins. I'm really interested about that, too, because I'm curious to see how the chemistry is going to work out between Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill together. But Dolphins, definitely that Cinderella team. Malcolm Jenkins also retired from the Saints. He was obviously my favorite safety in the league. Malcolm Jenkins, he's been with the Saints for years and years, so it's kind of sad seeing him go, but when you got kids, when you got family, I mean, it's kind of what you got to worry about. So it's good to see Malcolm Jenkins go, but it's also sad. Thursday night hockey, Islanders crushed the Blue Jackets in New York 2-5. Islanders are 5th in the Metro. Blue Jackets are 6 behind Islanders. Both teams are not really looking forward to playoffs. They're not playoff ready. But I will tell you, the rookies that they have on their team definitely can improve. So with that being said, they're definitely a improving team, improvement year for them. Islanders' key player is Matthew Barzal and Kyle Palmieri. Those 2 guys are rookies for the Islanders. We could definitely see them improving over time. But yeah, bottom line is for Blue Jackets and Islanders, it's a build-up season. Bruins crushed the Devils. Bruins record is now 42-20. Devils record is 24-38. Obviously, the Devils are not good at all, but the Bruins are really good. I mean, they're fighting for the wild card right now against the Capitals. Man of the game was Brad Marchand, as he had 2 goals and 6 shot on goals. So, I mean, the aggressiveness that we saw in the offense that the Bruins showed was absolutely amazing. But can the Bruins keep this up? Obviously, they lost a couple games back, but, I mean, no doubt they can keep this up. I mean, they're facing Columbus tomorrow, and they're no doubt going to pull a win against them. Columbus Blue Jackets are not that good, so Bruins expect to win tomorrow. Panthers knocked the Blackhawks 4-0 in Fort Lauderdale. Maple Leafs embarrassed the Jets 3-7. Hurricanes dominated the Canadiens in Raleigh 4-0. Man of the game was Frederik Andersen. Guy had 32 saves. Really good goalie for the Canadiens. But when we look at it, considering that big loss that they just had, I mean, the goalie was probably the best out there, right? Probably the best out there. Andrei Svechnikov had 6 shot on goals with 2 goals. Obviously, he was really good. I mean, considering the aggressiveness that we saw from just that guy, I mean, it's really amazing to see. When you have more than 5 shot on goals, you no doubt want to get a win. You no doubt want to score a goal. He deserved it. I mean, this is one of the best players on the Canadiens right now, and this is the only guy they can really look at. And as for the Hurricanes, they're playoff ready. As for the Canadiens, they aren't. Wild took the L facing the Penguins in overtime 4-3. Kings executed the Flames 3-2 in Calgary. Kings record is 37-23. Flames record is 40-18. Calgary Flames right now, the best in the Pacific right now. I mean, these guys show up every game. I mean, I'm actually shocked they actually lost that game, considering that the Kings are also good. The Kings aren't obviously as good as the Flames, but the Flames right now, expect them to go far in the playoffs. Not just make the playoffs, but go far in the playoffs. So keep an eye out for the Flames right now. Jacob Markstrom had 30 saves for Calgary. One of the best goals that they have right now. I mean, this guy absolutely puts a stop to the goal. And now, could the Flames have won? And yes, they can. I mean, considering that this was a shootout, they definitely could have won. I mean, obviously, shootouts are kind of like a 50-50 chance right there to win. But it happens. A lot of teams lose shootouts. It happens. But overall, though, Calgary, don't be upset by this loss. Definitely take this and go forward with it. Avalanche manhandled the Sharks 4-2. Stars pulled a W in overtime facing the Ducks in Anaheim 3-2. Stars are now 5th in the conference right now for the Central. And as for the Ducks, they're not doing that well. 7th in the Pacific Conference. Obviously, as we know, the Ducks were really good a couple seasons back, and ever since they lost their players due to injuries and just trading, they've really fallen off. So hopefully Anaheim could just take this as a build-up season and they could do well going forward. Key players for the Ducks is Kevin Shattenkirk and Troy Terry with 8 shot on goals and 1 goal in total. So as we know, if you have more than 5 shot on goals, I mean, that's aggressiveness. We saw a lot from the Stars. But, I mean, if they could just push themselves up by 2 more spots in the standings, they can look for the playoffs. But in my opinion, both teams are not playoff ready. MLB news. Now, this is what I want to talk about. White Sox trade for Craig Kimbrel and for A.J. Pollock. I mean, wow. In my opinion, a lot of people think I'm kind of crazy for saying this, but I don't like this trade. I mean, hear me out. Craig Kimbrel, he used to be, don't say he's a good good pitcher, closer, but I mean, he just lost his touch over time. The only time when Craig Kimbrel was actually good as a closer was when he was with Boston, and ever since he moved to Atlanta, he really just fallen off. So now that, I mean, I like the fact that we have a closer, considering that we lost Kenley Jansen. I like that we have a closer. That's respect. I like that. But losing A.J. Pollock, who has been with the team for years, almost 7 years, he's a veteran for the Dodgers. Losing him as an outfielder, it kind of hurts the Dodgers, but it doesn't really hurt us as much. But it's sad seeing a veteran like A.J. Pollock go. And as for Craig Kimbrel, I mean, you got to fully rely on this guy. You better hope he's on his A game when he closes out the game. I mean, this guy definitely has fallen off seasons back, in my opinion. So, hate me or not, I don't think it's a good trade. Craig Kimbrel, he's not the good as he used to be. Danbury Hat Tricks. Now time for local news. Danbury Hat Tricks, their final game in Carolina tonight. Danbury Hat Tricks ISB have been looking real good as of late. They're heading into the playoffs. Danbury is confident after a 6-2 win facing the Thunder. And obviously the Thunder, they're not doing that well at all this season. So we'll now take it over to high school. High school softball and baseball begins Saturday. And, you know, it's spring. Spring's here. So it will definitely get interesting for who's good and who's not. Danbury will be facing Foreign for baseball tomorrow. Danbury heads to New Milford for softball tomorrow. Newtown faces Greenwich at 2 o'clock tomorrow. That's for softball. And then Newtown gets ready for Darien, which is for softball. And then Pomprog versus Oxford, which, as we know, Oxford and Pomprog do have a rivalry, going with Pomprog hosting Oxford at home for softball. So stay tuned to that. It's getting good. So next time we come back here, we'll have some scores for high school. I think by the time we come back, we should be playoff bound. Playoffs should be like the week after. So lots happening. And as for NHL, I just want to say, because baseball is coming back next week, we're going to put down NHL for a bit. We'll come back to it around Stanley Cup time. But as for now, when we come back, it'll be NBA, MLB, high school, and Danbury hat tricks. Danbury hat trick should actually be past the playoffs, so we'll hopefully have a winner about who wins that. And yeah, without further ado, that wraps it up for the Sports Grind Season 4, Episode 2.